Well, hello there and welcome to Lunchtime News here on TV1. You're joining me, David Paldano. Now, before we head into your stories in more detail, let's first take a look at your headlines this afternoon. US 2020 presidential election, final result to be announced today. Economic centers in areas under curfew reopen. Number of COVID-19 cases reported in the country reaches 11,744. Government Medical Officers Association to reassign from Health Ministry's Technical Committee. Well, today is the day America decides on who their next president will be, whether it will be Joe Biden or current President Donald Trump. We are now joined by Chaturanga Apwarachi of Newsfirst in our own newsroom to tell us exactly what is going on in the United States. Chaturanga, what exactly is happening right now?
Yes, David, interestingly, Joe Biden is leading 238 electoral colleges to against 213 by Donald Trump. Of course, we know that 270 is the required mark to become the United States president. Whether it will be Donald Trump going in for his second term or whether it will be a new term for Joe Biden is the question at hand. Several battlegrounds, we are discussing about several battlegrounds, and those remain to be Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina and Florida. However, as we saw a short while ago, Florida tipped to in favor of Donald Trump as it did in 2016. When we take a look at the other key areas, Wisconsin, Michigan and North Carolina all seem to be in favor of Donald Trump at the moment. Wisconsin has 10 electoral colleges, Michigan has 16. Pennsylvania has 20 electoral colleges and North Carolina has 15. So these will be very pivotal in the next few hours to determine who will actually end up becoming the president of the United States of America. Over to the east coast of the states, you can see that almost all of it has been won by Democrats, and Joe Biden has obtained the lead, except for Arizona, which was previously in 2016 at the 2016 election a state held by Donald Trump, has this time moved on to be a state that has been won by the Democrats. However, the voter reporting at the Arizona state seems to be at 64%, therefore it is still being updated. Let me shift your attention to what happened in 2016 at the presidential election. We can have a look at this location and see, as I mentioned, Arizona seems to be remain a Republican state back in 2016. However, this time around it has gone up to become a blue state. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina and Florida, the 5 battle states in the United States presidential election, were Republican states in the 2016 election. Trump won 304 out of the 200. He required 270, but he won 304. But Clinton only could manage to secure 227 electoral colleges. This was the situation in 2016. Let's come back to 2020. We know that the situation is starkly different from what it was in 2016. That time the mentality and the 2020 mentality seems to be very different rather in the United States of America, especially with the fact that the coronavirus has played a very important role in the election, and the handling of the coronavirus by the current President Donald Trump has also made a significant impact on the US populace and their thinking. We also saw the BLM or the Black Lives Matter protests happening. So these factors are taken into consideration by the voting populace of the United States of America to decide who will become the president of the United States, whether it will be Donald Trump or whether it will be Joe Biden. Another factor to keep in mind is Donald Trump is contesting for a second term at the White House, as the first president of the United States to be asking for re-election after being impeached. That should also be kept in mind. As of right now, what do we know in terms of these 4 remaining key battle areas or battle states? We know that Wisconsin has already reported in about 64% of votes and remains to be in favor of Donald Trump, Republican candidate. Michigan has also reported in about 60 to 64% and remains to be in favor of Donald Trump. Pennsylvania, a state again that is considered a battleground, again has 20 electoral colleges in favor at the moment of Donald Trump, with the voter reporting in around 60 to 64%. North Carolina, a key state everyone's attention is on after Florida, remains to be in favor of Donald Trump at the moment. And of course, we saw Florida going off and becoming a Donald Trump state or a Republican state earlier in the day. Now, with this being the current situation, in a couple of hours we will have the results of one of these states, and then we can have a better idea of who's actually leading. But at the moment, Biden and Kamala Harris, his vice president candidate, has 238 electoral colleges, and Trump and Pence have 213. That is where it stands. Now, with the election results coming out, there were a lot of things happening, especially over the night yesterday with the United States election. But what did Mike Pence and Donald Trump have to say on Twitter? Let me draw your attention to several key messages that were shared by them on Twitter. Donald Trump took to Twitter and he said, "I will be making a statement tonight, a big win." That was what he said on Twitter. He was also hinting at the election being taken away or stolen from him earlier in the day. So there seems to be a sentiment of making a statement, and we are looking and waiting to hear what Donald Trump has to say as well. What did what did Joe Biden have to say ahead of the election? He said, "We feel good about where we are. We believe we are on track to win this election." That is what Joe Biden had to say. Of course, he is on the lead at the moment, but we do not know how the final results will be announced. Joe Biden also made another important point. He said, "It's not my place or Donald Trump's place to declare the winner of this election. It is the voters' place." Now, we saw many protests happening in the United States of America ahead of the US presidential election, especially the Black Lives Matter protests. Yesterday, while people were waiting for, or rather on the eve of the election, we saw similar incidents happening in the United States of America, especially against a backdrop where Washington DC has been cordoned off. We saw marches happening in New York City. We are looking at people bringing up posters, again reminding the country of how the Black Lives Matter protests were happening. This is visuals you are seeing on screen of New York City, where marches were happening yesterday. It was not all doom and gloom with regard to the US election. Some people were having a bit of fun awaiting the election results as well. This is a report that we have regarding such an incident. Let's have a look at that as well. In a few hours, we will know who will take leads of the White House, whether it will be Donald Trump going in for a second term or whether it will be Joe Biden taking on the role of the leader of the free world. 14 billion US dollars is the amount spent for the election this time around, according to various international media reports. There is also a lot of attention as to how this will happen, how the voter turnout will turn out to be, how the people in these key battlegrounds, battle states will be voting to elect their president. These are all matters that we are keeping a close eye on, close watch on, and we promise you that we will keep you updated on all of our news bulletins and on our social media platforms as to what is happening in terms of the US election. David, it's over to you once again.
Thank you, Chaturanga, for that comprehensive report on the current outstanding and what's happening in the United States right now. Now, shifting our attention from the United States to our local stories here, the total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases reported in the country increased to 11,744, while the number of active patients currently receiving medical treatment stands at 6,140. 409 new COVID-19 cases were reported yesterday. The number of recovered patients stands at 5,581. The 22nd and 23rd death due to COVID-19 were reported yesterday. One of the deceased was a 68-year-old woman who was a resident of Jampeta Street in Colombo. The Health Ministry's Epidemiology Unit said that tests carried out on the woman following her demise at her residence had shown that she contracted the virus. The Government Information Department cited the cause of the death as pneumonia, which is a complication of COVID-19. The other was a 61-year-old woman who is a resident of Colombo 15. According to the Department of Government Information, the tests carried out on the woman following her demise at her residence had shown that she had contracted the virus. The death toll due to COVID-19 in the country currently stands at 23. Now on to one of your headline-making stories. Economic centres at areas that are under curfew have been permitted to remain open today.
The economic centres in Ratmalana, Bokundara, Migoda, Veyangoda and Narahampita resumed operations this morning. However, retail trading will not take place at these centres. Although the Piliyandal Economic Centre remained open today, only 3 lorries carrying eggs, coconuts and rice were seen at the premises.
It is good that they have allowed economic centres to remain open since these items are produced daily. It would be useful if activities are carried out while ensuring the safety of everyone. Since last night, we have been expecting goods to arrive here. However, this is a failure. There are no goods here. Vegetables have been brought to the economic centre. However, it is retail trading that takes place mostly at these premises. The people who visit the economic centre purchase goods for about 2,000 or 3,000 rupees. They have been left helpless since we have been asked to engage in wholesale trading. The buyers are not economically capable of purchasing large stocks.
The Ratmalana Economic Centre was disinfected before resuming operations this morning. Trading at the centre commenced at 10 a.m. today. All vehicles were inspected by the police before entering the economic centre. A considerable amount of traders turned up at this economic centre to purchase goods in wholesale quantities. The Valisara dedicated economic centre remained closed today. The establishment was closed after 6 individuals had tested positive for COVID-19. The economic centre is due to reopen next Monday. Wholesale stores were allowed to remain open in Peta since 5 a.m. today. The president of the Essential Goods Importers and Traders Association, P. Rajendran, said stores will remain open until 3 p.m. today. Meanwhile, Minister Bandulu Gunawardena and the senior DIG of the Western Province, Deshabandhu Tennakon, visited Peta to monitor the situation when wholesale stores were kept open.
There is no shortage of essential commodities at the economic centre. There are sufficient stocks of products such as rice, flour, sugar, dal, onions and potatoes. Potatoes are being sold at 140 rupees and onions at 130 rupees. There is a problem regarding rice because they have been sold at high rates. We will rectify the situation in keeping with the provisions of the Consumer Affairs Authority Act. We hope to issue a gazette in this regard. There are sufficient stocks of other goods in the country. We won't have to pile up large stocks of goods at our homes. There are sufficient stocks. Activities at the 4th and 5th Cross Street in Peta, in which essential commodities such as potatoes, onions, dals and sugar are being distributed amidst COVID-19, are taking place as usual. We have to pay special attention to the individuals involved in loading goods into vehicles in this area. We are preparing a special work plan with the Regional Medical Officer of Health and the Peta Police over this matter. All workers will be directed to PCR tests.
PCR පරීක්ෂණයට ලක් කරන්න ඉදිරි දින කිහිපය තුළදී අනිවාර්යයෙන් මේ අය PCR පරීක්ෂණයට ලක් වෙනවා.
The Essential Goods Importers and Traders Association said there are sufficient stocks of essential goods in storage facilities.
The Acting Deputy Director General of Public Health Services, Dr. Hemantha Herath, expressed these views on reopening economic centres. Hospitals must not refuse the admission of patients under any circumstances. I wish to emphasize that if hospitals refuse to admit patients, the public should file a complaint about it. The Health Ministry will then take stringent action against them. We permitted economic centres to remain open not for any form of entertainment but to fulfill essential needs. We understood that it was essential to keep these centres open. However, this does not imply that a cluster cannot be formed at an economic centre. The people must bear this in mind. The individuals overseeing the economic centre and the traders must appropriately follow all health guidelines. The people at economic centres have a massive responsibility to ensure that they avoid any form of public gathering that can lead to a formation of a cluster. If the activities at an economic centre are not taking place in line with the guidelines, health officials have been vested with powers to immediately shut down those establishments to minimize the risk of COVID-19. Do not force us to exercise these powers.
සෞඛ්‍ය බලධාරීන්ට සම්පූර්ණ බලය තියෙනවා. ඒ බලය භාවිත කරන තැනට එන්නට එපාය කියන එක තමයි අපිට කියන්න තියෙන්නේ.
Now another one of your headline-making stories. Convening a media briefing today, the Government Medical Officers Association said it has decided to resign from the Health Ministry's technical committee.
We can observe that new COVID-19 cases are being identified from the community. The capacity of PCR testing continues to be of major concern. We expect the authorities to increase the number of PCR tests to satisfactory levels. GPS mapping is another issue. Why can't a map indicating all COVID-19 cases reported in the country be prepared and published? We have been highlighting this matter for more than a month, but nothing has happened. We informed the Director General of Health Services that if this process does not take place, there is no point of continuing to serve in the Technical Committee of the Health Ministry. Therefore, the GMOA has decided to refrain from actively participating in the activities of the Technical Committee of the Health Ministry. We will have to reach a final decision in this regard if a mechanism to implement GPS mapping is not put forward.
2 dead whales washed up on the Panadura coast this morning. Accordingly, 7 whales and a dolphin have died after the biggest mass stranding of these animals were reported in the country this week.
2 dead whales had washed up on the Panadura coast this morning with several injuries on their bodies. It is believed that the mammals had died 2 days ago. A large pod of pilot whales and dolphins had washed up on the Panadura coast recently. The incident saw rescue teams and volunteers joining hands to return the whales to the ocean. However, some whales that unfortunately lost their lives in the process had washed up on the Panadura coast. The carcasses of these mammals were buried following a post-mortem examination.
Well, that is a wrap of lunchtime news here on TV1. For more news, log on to our award-winning website, that is www.newsfirst.lk, or stay tuned to our social media platforms, that is Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. For the News First team, I'm David Paldano. Take care.